Yo, how's it going, guys? Welcome back to another book review. In today's episode, we'll be looking at The Sirens of Titan by Kurt Vonnegut. Finalist for the 1960 Hugo Awards, it is apparently only his second published novel, which the blurb tells you later on. As soon as I saw this book, I was interested straight away, because I was wondering, obviously Titan is the most popular, most well-known moon of Saturn, but I didn't quite know what they meant by the Sirens of Titan. Obviously I know what sirens are, and I thought it was very intriguing to find out what kind of sirens are on Titan, apparently. The cover is also magnificent. Initially, you probably, you see an eagle on it or something resembling an eagle, a few flowers, you see Saturn in the background, you don't actually know what this thing is. But by the time you finish reading the book, all of that actually makes sense. You know what everything is, and I just think it looks lovely. The classic SF Masterwork style, but I absolutely love it. Let's get into the blurb. When Winston Niles Rumfoord flies his spaceship into a chronosynclastic infundibulum, he is converted into pure energy and only materializes when his waveforms intercept Earth or some other planet. As a result, he only gets to Newport, Rhode Island, once every 59 days and only for an hour. But at least, as a consolation, he now knows everything that has ever happened and everything that ever will be. He knows, for instance, that his wife is going to Mars to mate with Malachi Constant, the richest man in the world. He also knows that on Titan, one of Saturn's moons, is an alien from the planet Tralfamadore, who has been waiting 200,000 years for a space part for his grounded spacecraft. So, as that just said, the book starts off with Niles Rumfoord, who is a very rich man, so he got a spaceship, and he went with his dog named Kazakh out into space, and he ran into the chronosynclastic infundibulum, which pretty much turned him into some sort of wavelength, something to do with spirals, which pretty much means that he travels to different places in the solar system where those spirals intercept with an object. If there's nothing but space where the spiral is, he doesn't materialize. But if the spiral hits a planet, for example Earth, then he materializes on that planet. And like that just said, it happens on Earth every X amount of days, and it happens on a few other planets every X amount of days as well. For example, he also materializes on Mars, and he also materializes on Mercury. So pretty much because of that, he is the most well-known man in the world, pretty much. Everyone wants to come to his house because he always materializes in his house, but only for an hour. And everyone wants to come to his house to see him materialize. However, his wife doesn't let anyone in to see him materialize. However, that changes one day as Rumfoord requests that Malachi Constant, the richest man currently on Earth, is invited in to see him materialize because Rumfoord actually wants to talk to him. And Malachi Constant is an interesting character from the get-go because he didn't earn his fortune, he got it from his father, who himself earned all of it from being very poor to being one of the richest men in the world, if not the richest. And because of that, Malachi doesn't actually have any talents in terms of money making. He doesn't know how to do it. He was taught by his dad, and he is referred in the book as being the luckiest man on Earth also, because he has no talent in making money. However, his dad does this one trick where his dad went through every word of the Bible, took the first two letters of a word, and found a stock with those two letters as the initials of the stock, and just kept buying those stocks. And it turned out that every time he bought the stocks with the two letters as he was going through the Bible, that stock skyrocketed and made him plenty of money. So he taught that skill onto Malachi, and that's pretty much what Malachi has been doing the whole time. So then Malachi goes and meets Rumfoord during his materialization, and Rumfoord, who can see into the future thanks to this chronosynclastic infundibulum, he tells Malachi that in the next X amount of years, Malachi's going to travel to Mars, then he's going to travel to Mercury, then he's going to travel back to Earth, and then he's going to end up on Titan, where he's going to live out pretty much the rest of his life. And he also tells him that he would do this with Rumfoord's wife, who will become his mate, and they will have a child together. Now, this news really dissatisfies Malachi Constant. He doesn't want that to happen. He doesn't want to leave Earth. He's very comfortable living his life as the richest man on Earth. He has everything he wants. He doesn't want to go to different planets with this guy's wife, who he doesn't seem to like from the start anyway. So because of that, Malachi Constant decides, what can I do to possibly prevent all of these things happening? So he thinks, okay, so the first thing that happens is I go to Mars. So I'm going to try and avoid going to Mars any possible way. Now, obviously, he's the richest man on Earth, so he just blows all of his wealth away. So he has no way of getting to Mars because he won't have a spaceship, he won't have the money to afford traveling to Mars. However, he blows all of his wealth away, and then what happens is he gets kidnapped by two agents from Mars, because it turns out on Mars there's a quite a early stage civilization of people from Earth that are on Mars, and they're trying to recruit more people from Earth for their army to eventually attack and conquer Earth. And it very quickly turns out that that Mars civilization that is building that massive army is actually controlled by Rumfoord as well, because when he materializes on Mars, he is like the commander-in-chief of the army there. So, that's pretty much where I'll end my spoiler-free review, but it just raises a lot of questions straight from the get-go of why is Rumfoord materializing on Earth, telling Malachi that he has to go to all these different places, and then it turns out that Rumfoord is a bad guy because he's building an army on Mars to attack Earth. Why you should read this book? Because of all these questions. It just raises a lot of questions straight away. It makes you wonder, what is Rumfoord actually planning? Because obviously Rumfoord can see into the future, so he knows everything that is going to happen anyway. Also, if you remember from the blurb, it said there was a alien on Titan waiting for a spaceship part. And the funny thing I found about this book is we do not meet this alien until incredibly late in the book, which caught me by surprise. By the time we met him, I was actually like, oh wow, there's the alien. I completely forgot about him because it's been so long since we've seen him. But you should read this book because Malachi Constant goes from being the richest man on Earth to being incredibly poor, forced into joining the army on Mars, and he goes through a big redemption arc of, where he finds out that there are things worth living for. He finds a purpose. He becomes a better person from being a very wealthy guy that doesn't care about anything to actually caring about people, actually having a journey of self-discovery pretty much. And it's quite a heartfelt journey because Malachi Constant, I don't want to spoil anything, but he goes through an incredibly tough time in the book. Like, things just keep happening to him that are really terrible. Like, I would hate to be Malachi Constant just because the things that happen to him are just so horrifying. But I obviously don't want to mention any of them because I'll end up spoiling the book. Another reason why you should read this book is because the ending, I absolutely adored the final 2 chapters of the book. Throughout the book, I did enjoy the book. However, I did find it to be dragging on a little bit. I just wanted to finally get to the end goal. Not because I was getting bored of the book, but because I really wanted to see where it was going, and it was kind of slowing down at certain parts. So, but once I got to the ending, I was just blown away. It was such a heartwarming, but also like heart-destroying ending. It was just amazing. I think the book is definitely worth reading just to get to the ending and see the resolution of everything. Maybe other people won't find it as great an ending as I did, but I personally really loved the ending of this book, and that's probably it will be a hard read for a second time because everything's been revealed, like the grand reveal at the end. I obviously know what happens now, so I don't know how much the book has in terms of rereading it. I think it does a bit because the journey of Malachi is very good. And another reason why you should read this book is because it's not just a science fiction novel, it's a comic science fiction novel, which means that Kurt Vonnegut has a lot of humor, a lot of comedy sprinkled into the book. And when I say sprinkled, there is quite a lot of it, so maybe it's more than a sprinkle. A lot of it is very good. It does add to the story. It is really funny, but there's also a few moments where there's comedy, and I'm just thinking to myself, let's just move this on. This is dragging a little bit. To give you one inkling of a comedy skit, so this is between a character called Unk and a character called Boaz, and Boaz has actually been mind controlling Unk up until this point. However, Unk was able to break out of the mind control, so he says to him, "Why wouldn't I be, buddy? Last night, while you were asleep, old buddy, I took that fool thing out of your pocket, old buddy, and I opened it up, old buddy, and I tore the insides out of it, old buddy, and I stuffed it with toilet paper. And now I'm sitting on my bunk, old buddy, and I've got my rifle loaded, old buddy, and it's aimed in your direction, old buddy, and just what the hell do you think you're going to do about anything? And that's just one of the many wordplays in the book. There's also another one I remember where once Malachi Constant joins the army on Mars, the army has such a ridiculous formation kind of ranking where he's the 5th platoon of the 14th region of the 17th sector of the 5th campaign of the 4th company, etc., etc., and it just keeps going like that. And it's not only mentioned once, it's mentioned like 3 or 4 times just to drive the joke in. So yeah, there's plenty of great things in the book. I definitely recommend reading it because it was a great time, and it does definitely earn its place as an SF masterwork in my mind because it was really good, even if I did find it to drag on a little bit at points. Now that we're done with the spoiler-free review, this is where I'm going to get into a few of the things I want to talk about that happened in the book, a few of the ideas present in the book, and yeah, this will probably have a lot of spoilers in it, so maybe just go read the book and then come back to this and you can listen to what I'm discussing, and then you can maybe add in the comments your perspective of the things I talked about or anything else you want to mention, and I'll read through the comments and reply, and we can have a nice chat. So, my favorite chapter was definitely the last chapter in the book, which was chapter 12. There's also an epilogue which was quite good as well, but chapter 12 really stole the whole show for me because, like I mentioned, how the book, I wanted to get through it, and by the time we reached chapter 12 everything got revealed in it, and I thought it was just amazing for a chapter. So chapter 12 we actually get to meet Salo, who is the alien that's been waiting for a space part. It took forever for us to actually get to Titan, but we're finally on Titan. We actually get to meet Salo. We find out that Rumfoord is actually on Titan 24/7. He never doesn't materialize on Titan. It's the only planet where he's always materialized. He's built this whole like Taj Mahal looking thing to live in. So we find out that Salo is an incredibly advanced AI robot who actually develops emotions from the looks of things. And my question is whether every robot on Tralfamadore has emotions. Salo did say he's the most advanced model, the best of the best that the robots had to offer, so maybe it's just him. But it's an interesting thing because obviously, actually I'll get into that a bit later on. I'll just speak about my favorite chapter, chapter 12. So this is where all the big reviews happen. Malachi Constant, i.e. Unk, actually reaches Titan with Rumfoord's wife and their child, Chrono, I think his name was. And the big thing I liked was Chrono has that good luck charm, and it turns out that was the part that was needed for the spaceship. I thought that was pretty funny. I did not consider that to be the case at all during the book. I never even thought that would be the case, but that's interesting. Like, I thought, oh, that's a funny review. But then the big review was obviously that the robots on Tralfamadore have the universal will to become, which they have used pretty much to create humans so that they can eventually become a civilization, etc., etc., so that Unk is born, Malachi Constant, and so that he delivers this final spaceship part. It's probably the most convoluted space mission of all time, making the robot wait 200,000 years for a whole humankind to be developed, just so that he can have this one spaceship part. But I mean, it's very funny, but I mean, I like it. I have no reason not to like it. But I think the biggest part of chapter 12 that I liked was that it's so clear that Salo has developed emotions for Rumfoord, who he considers to be his best friend. And it was absolutely heartbreaking to see how Rumfoord was treating Salo, pretty much saying, like, you never cared about me. This was your plan all along, just to use me so that you can get your spaceship part. And I thought it was absolutely heartbreaking having Salo dismantle himself because he just doesn't want to live without his friend, because he knows he's disappointed his friend. And also the reveal that he has the message for whatever civilization he reaches in whatever target area he's going to, and Salo actually opens up the message and all it says is greetings. I thought that was that was another part of this comedy that the book is going for that I really enjoyed, the fact that it's literally just greetings. It was really funny, but at the same time it was heartbreaking again, because this is, Salo thought about that too late on, where Rumfoord was like, well, if you care about me so much, show me the message. But Salo's like, no, I can't overcome my programming. And eventually he does overcome the program, and he's like, look, Rumfoord, this is the message. But Rumfoord's already gone by then, off to a different solar system. So it was absolutely the most heartbreaking chapter in my opinion, and I love that we just got the reveal for everything, which makes sense. I mean, it's the last chapter. If you're not going to reveal it now, you'll never reveal it, right? But let's talk about a few other things that I liked about the book. So obviously there's a lot of comedy, which I already mentioned, and like I'm saying with the greetings thing, the comedy works very well a lot of the time. However, sometimes I do find it to drag, and I don't know if it's specifically the comedy that drags or if it's just the crazy amount of interactions between characters. Because obviously interactions between characters are really important for development of characters, development of the story, so that there are stakes, etc. However, I did feel like sometimes the book was dragging a little bit. For example, when they came back to Earth for the second time, when Rumfoord materialized and he got Malachi and Rumfoord's wife together under some chrono, they all went into the spaceship. That whole part felt a little bit slow to me. Like, I know why it had to be done. It just felt a little bit slow, and maybe that's just an issue I had. Maybe, if everyone's perspective when they read is different, everyone's experience is different. So maybe to me it just felt really dragging on. However, to everyone else it was fine. I'm not saying I want the book to be any shorter than it is. I just thought that at one point I did want it to just progress a little bit faster than it was. I enjoyed about the book how much the Martians got destroyed in their attack, like how they only managed to kill a few hundred people, if even at that, whereas they had thousands upon thousands. I liked how Earth just had like nukes, and they just launched the nukes at the spaceships coming into Earth, and they just destroyed all the spaceships at once. I thought that was really funny. It's just comedic how bad the attack was, and obviously it was bad on purpose. I just thought it was hilarious how bad the attack was. But now let's get a bit more into Salo. So I really enjoyed that he was able to develop emotions, because especially in 2024, when I'm recording this video going into 2025, because it's December, there's been so much development in AI and in robotics, how Tesla's creating their own robots now, how ChatGPT and similar AIs are able to just come up with things on the spot, how people actually, for some reason, talk to like AI girlfriends and similar things to that, which I don't really see the point in doing, but I see why people would do it if they're really lonely and they fall into that kind of thing. But that's a topic for another video, not for this review. But I did enjoy that Salo got to develop emotions, because obviously he is so advanced as a species of robot that it just makes sense that the next chapter for him would be to gain emotions. And I really liked how they showed it, how at the start, Salo is always a really nice robot, really nice character to everyone else, but him developing emotions and actually seeing him crying over Rumfoord because he's his best friend, and he actually goes against his programming. I thought that was all very well done, and how he separates himself at the end, because think about that. He's a robot, and his main purpose, right, the main purpose that's been assigned to him in his programming is to reach this solar system, like ages and ages away. That's his mission. And he cared about Rumfoord so much that he disobeyed his mission completely. He actually tore himself apart. He killed himself because of how much Rumfoord meant to him, and how much he realized he disappointed Rumfoord, so much so that he did not actually want to complete his mission. Obviously, eventually, once Malachi Constant puts them back together, he realizes, okay, the things that happened, but the best way I can go forward and remember Rumfoord is actually completing the mission that I've been assigned. Because after all, we find out that the Tralfamadorians, the robots on there with their universal will to become, were the reason for all of civilization, all of humankind existing. So if anything, it shows that Salo is actually showing that Rumfoord's whole life and death wasn't for nothing, because if not for those robots, if not for Salo's mission and his spacecraft breaking down, Rumfoord never would have existed because the Tralfamadorians never would have created a civilization on Earth. So it goes very deep. It does. There are several layers to it, which is actually the reason why I love this book so much. It's just the fact that the Tralfamadorians are behind everything is it was a great reveal. I really enjoyed it. I'm gonna read something from page 213 about the Tralfamadorians, how they eventually eliminated humans. The machines reported, in all honesty, that the creatures couldn't really be said to have any purpose at all. The creatures thereupon began slaying each other because they hated purposeless things above all else, and they discovered that they weren't even good at slaying. So they turned that job over to the machines too, and the machines finished up the job in less time than it takes to say Tralfamadore. So what that quote says is that pretty much the civilization on Tralfamadore created robots to conduct initially very menial tasks, like taking out the trash, like washing dishes, etc. But eventually they got the robots to find out what their purpose is, because everyone thinks they have a purpose. Purpose is very important to humans. So the robots found out actually the humans didn't have any purpose at all, which made the humans very angry, and they decided to start killing each other because humans are really good at killing each other. And eventually they said, actually, well, if machines are so good at everything, then maybe they can kill the people better than we can. So then they designed the machines to kill people, and then the machines just murdered everyone. And the reason why I thought that was really good was, as I was talking about how much AI and robots have developed, I think for many, many, many years, like many decades, people have had the fear that eventually robots will take over and kill all the humans and take over our civilization. And the closer we come to that point now, with robots coming more into the mainstream, eventually we'll all have a robot. Right now no one has robots, or very few people do, and they're very, very expensive, of course, and very underdeveloped. But they're getting better, and it's actually scary how quickly the progress is moving on. Whereas, let's say 2 years ago, you wouldn't have heard much about robots at all. Like, AI was very early in its stages, but within the last year, it's progressed so much that we're coming closer and closer to the point where robots will become very intelligent, to the point where if they wanted to, they could get rid of us. And that's exactly what happened on Tralfamadore. And I enjoy seeing the similarities between Tralfamadore and us. And I don't know if Kurt meant to write it that way, where he's pretty much like poking you in the ribs, being like, see, this is what's going to happen on Earth, or whether it's just what he created for the story. I don't know if it's meant to kind of resemble what could be happening on Earth or not, but I digress. I did enjoy that, though, however, that humans cared so much about their purpose. The robots told them, you have no purpose, and then the robots killed everyone. It was the humans on there, or I guess they would be aliens, but it was the aliens on there that told them to kill everyone. So, like, you can't argue with it. It was the aliens' fault, right? But talking a bit more about the whole meaning of purpose, it's definitely a theme throughout the whole book. For example, Boaz, when he's on Mercury, he finds his purpose, which is to make the harmoniums happy, because when he sings, when he plays the instruments or whatever he was doing on there, the harmoniums are obviously happy, they're jiggling, they're changing colors, and Boaz is really enjoying that. He loves how many harmoniums are coming to him. They're coming in many numbers, like thousands of them, and he feels like he's found his purpose. His purpose is to make the harmoniums happy. Obviously, Boaz at this point has gone crazy, right? It depends on how you look at it, but I think it's quite clear to a reasonable person that he's gone crazy to some extent. But then again, how much can you argue with him going crazy when he's on Mercury by himself? Maybe he's enjoying that life more than being on Earth, and all the stresses that come with living on Earth and actually having a job, etc., etc. If you can just live on Mercury for the rest of your life with all the food stocks that you could possibly need, and you just make some harmoniums jiggle about, and it's pretty much his family. So he's definitely found a purpose. About purpose as well, Beatrice, who is Rumfoord's wife, she also says at one point that she is glad that she was used for the Martian army by Rumfoord, because she doesn't know what other purpose she would have had on Earth. Like maybe she would have had a bigger purpose, or maybe she would have had a lesser purpose, but she was just glad that she did have a purpose, and she was glad that her purpose, although it really ruined her as a person, having to go through that whole experience, especially that pretty much all of the Martian invaders, except for like 50 of them, died. Like she's just glad to have had a purpose that actually changed the world for better, or what seems to be better. It depends on how you view the religion that actually ended up being on Earth after the Martian invasion, and Rumfoord pretty much saying that he is the new Messiah or whatever. But yeah, about purpose, obviously. Boaz thought he had a purpose, and he was really happy that he found this purpose, and Beatrice is really glad that she was used for a purpose as well. And that was a really sad moment, that she went through something so horrific, but she thought, I'm glad to have had a purpose. I'm glad to have been used up for Rumfoord's goals, and now I can just live out not worrying about anything again. Moving on to Rumfoord's religion, obviously after the Martian attack, Rumfoord told everyone that we are making a new religion, and I think this was another part of the book which gets really comedic, where his whole religion purpose was pretty much, God does not care about you. Does God exist? Yeah, but he really doesn't care about you. Nothing good that happens to you is because of God. So we are making a new church of pretty much God the indifferent, I think he calls them, where God just does not care at all. I thought that was really funny, especially when Unk or Malachi returns to Earth, and he's greeted by everyone as like, the second coming of Jesus. But when he sees everyone, everyone's wearing like big like sandbags, or like furnace plates and other stuff that makes them weaker, right? Because it puts like an extra load on them. Some of them, maybe some of them only have one eye, or some of them only have one arm, or whatever else. Everyone's handicapped in some way, and the whole purpose of that was that pretty much Rumfoord made it so that everyone is on a level playing field. No one has an advantage over another. So let's say, I don't know, if you're 7 foot tall, then you have to walk on your knees so that you're the same height as everyone else, that kind of thing. And the book doesn't delve really much into all the different handicaps, but I mean, you can come up with them yourself if you really want to. But yeah, it's just so funny that everyone bought into this religion, and I don't blame them for buying into the religion, because you know for a fact that there exists a being that can tell the future. So let's say in our world we had a being that could tell the future, and he was very popular and very well known because he can tell the future. At that point, you'd obviously treat him as a god, and you'd listen to everything he's saying, because he's obviously seen everything in the future. He knows what's going to happen, and he's proven it over and over again. So it creates a good question of how would we react in the real world if we knew that there was someone that could actually see in the future and would actually tell us what is happening. He would probably be treated as a god. He maybe would be treated as like, the king of the whole world, and everyone would listen to him. It is quite an interesting topic to think about, how that would impact our world. What else do I want to talk about? The universal will to become. I did enjoy that the Tralfamadorians are so developed as a species that their spaceships run on this universal will to become, so they don't use up fuel. It's this random concept, or I don't think it is a material. I specifically like that they can use this universal will to become to impact things like many light years away. For example, how they created the whole species of humankind, and I like the concept of, for what was it they said, that Stonehenge was actually a message to Salo, and it meant something along the lines of like, we're almost there, or we're almost done getting your spaceship part, or something like that. But I did enjoy that very much. A little bit about Rumfoord as a character, more specifically about the fact that he can tell the future. I wanted to talk about how that would impact someone. Like, let's say you could now see into the future and you could see everything, right? First of all, is that the kind of thing, or well, it would be the kind of future where you've seen it, but you can't change it, right? Because it's already gonna happen. You know, it's gonna happen. For example, if I could see that in 5 minutes' time I would get run over by a car, obviously I would try and do everything to avoid going outside so that I wouldn't get run over by a car. But then it would happen anyway, right? So there's no way of avoiding it, even if you wanted to, I guess, or at least that would be my perspective of it. Whereas maybe that's actually not true. Maybe Rumfoord could impact things. For example, let's say if Rumfoord saw that an asteroid was going to hit Earth, then he could tell the people on Earth, hey, there's an asteroid coming, could you shoot it? And then they would shoot it, and then there would be no asteroid. Maybe. But based on how the book was going with free will and the non-existence of free will, I don't think you could impact the future. Therefore, Rumfoord saw everything that was going to happen, and he had absolutely no power to stop any of it. And now my question would have been, if Rumfoord could see into the future and he saw that he would have an argument with Salo over the fact that he has no free will, does that then mean that he couldn't have had that argument with him earlier on? Like, let's say I look into my future and I see I have an argument with my parents about something in 10 years because turns out they never gave me something for my birthday 20 years ago. Could I actually, instead of having the argument in 10 years, go and have the argument with them now? Does that mean I wouldn't have it again in 10 years' time? Like, what I'm trying to say is, it's very hard to picture someone having absolutely zero free will to impact something after seeing that something was going to happen. I believe it's possible, definitely, and the book obviously presents that Rumfoord cannot impact the future at all, pretty much, because he just has to follow whatever he's seen to be happening in the future. It's just a very interesting concept and quite hard to wrap your head around, that he can't have changed anything if he even wanted to. I wonder if that extends to the point where he looked in the future and saw that he was gonna meet Malachi Constant at his home, and then he obviously saw into the future and saw everything that he was gonna say to Malachi Constant, so then he had to remember everything he was going to say, and then he said it to Malachi Constant. I think that's actually talked about in the book, that's exactly how it happens. So yeah, a little bit more about the non-existence of free will. I did enjoy that the Tralfamadorians created all of humankind, as I've already said like 10 times in this video. It does make you wonder if we actually do have free will in this world or not, because look, for all we know, maybe we're in the exact same boat. Maybe a billion light years away there's a planet called Tralfamadore, for example, or it could be it could be called iPhone, I don't know, something, and they have actually been impacting everything we're doing. Or I mean, I remember some time ago thinking of a theory where, you know, that if everyone likes to say that we're in a simulation, that maybe we're just all in a computer, just a very, very advanced computer in the future, and we're like sim characters being looked at by a civilization of superior beings, like way bigger than us, etc., etc. At which point maybe we have no free will, and also a lot of conversations about whether we have free will or whether everything we do is actually impacted by how our brain thinks about our emotions. But then you question whether emotions are actually free will, and everyone will have a different perspective on this, because you could argue that you have no free will because everything you do is based on your emotions, but then some people argue that your emotions are part of you, which makes them part of your free will. But it's too complex of a topic to cover in a very quick book review of this sort, and I would need some scientists with me, someone who has like deep PhD knowledge, because I'm just an ordinary guy, eh? But yeah, those were some things I wanted to talk about the book. The last thing I'm gonna talk about is the Sirens of Titan, right? The actual sirens themselves. So the most the book goes into the sirens, as far as I can remember from reading the book, is that Rumfoord has a swimming pool on Titan, and within the swimming pool there are statues of 3 sirens, and I think that is as far as it goes with speaking about the Sirens of Titan. However, something I do want to talk about is that he says the sirens are white, golden, and brown, and throughout the book it speaks about Beatrice as being white, golden, and brown at different points, which to me indicates that Beatrice is the 3 Sirens of Titan. because there's a lot of imagery at the start about the painting of Beatrice as a little girl in all white. Everything in the painting is white, so that's Beatrice being the white siren. And then later on, when she grows up, I think it was when Malachi returns to Earth, and before they get on the spaceship to head towards Titan, I think at that point she is mentioned as being golden. And then once they get to Titan and they've lived for years and years and they're really old just before they die, I think Malachi at that point mentions her being brown or looking brown, something along those lines. So I think the three Sirens of Titan were Beatrice from the very start. The actual significance of that, I'm not sure. It could be just that. It could just be that Beatrice did actually play a significant role in Malachi's life and in Rumfoord's life. She's obviously quite important because she gave birth to Chrono, who ended up being the very important person carrying the lucky charm. And then she lived out the rest of her life with Malachi on Titan, and she was obviously instrumental to the Martian army as well. Or, well, instrumental is debatable, but you know what I mean. So I think the three Sirens of Titan were referring to her, although I do think it's a little bit of a misleading title based on the fact that the Sirens don't really seem to impact the story that much. Although I question whether, just now thinking about it, whether it's meant to be more of a connotation thing where the Sirens of Titan is in the title of the book, but it means sirens, as in sirens are well known to pretty much affect fishermen and pretty much tell them what to do and get into their psyche and control them pretty much in a way, right? So I wonder if it's in the title there because it talks about free will and the lack thereof, how everyone is being affected and pretty much mind controlled in a way, if you want to call it that, by the Tralfamadorians. So although the Sirens refers to Beatrice, it also refers to the lack of free will and how everyone's been manipulated by the Tralfamadorians to bring back the spaceship part for Salo. But that will be it. That's I think everything I want to talk about. I try to be as concise as I can based on how my other book reviews have gone. I've not been too happy with my other book reviews in that I feel like I blabber on sometimes, and I'm sure I've blabbered on in this one as well. But it's really hard to be bang on organized when I really want to keep these reviews as one long take. I don't just want to keep cutting the video and just redoing a line at a time or anything like that, redoing a section when I don't like it. I want to keep it one big take, because at that point I feel like it's more of a conversation, even though I'm literally just talking to myself. But I like doing it this way more, and I hope you've been enjoying watching these. I think this one's been the best so far in trying to stay concise, trying to stay on topic, and me not repeating myself as much as I do in my other ones, and also not saying the word like a million times, although I'm sure I've done that at some point and I've just not realised. But anyway, The Sirens of Titan by Kurt Vonnegut, definitely worth a read. It's a very funny book, and the science fiction aspect of it is very well done. Everything to do with the free will, the religion, the purpose, to do with traveling from one planet to the next. I didn't really touch on the point in Mercury that much because I don't think it was that impactful to the book. It obviously had a lot of character development for Ankh, who eventually realized, no, I want to get back to Earth. I don't just want to stay on Mercury forever. And obviously for Boaz, who remained on Mercury for the rest of his life from the looks of things. But yeah, great book. I definitely recommend reading it. It was a great time. It's very clear why it was a finalist for the Hugo Awards. And I hope you enjoyed the book review. I will see you in the next one.